Hello and welcome to this edition of Poultry Talks. Today's focus will be on soy as a feed ingredient. Joining me in this talk is Dr. Thomas Alfonso from the US Soybean Export Council. We will explore how consistency in feed ingredient quality, specifically US derived soybean meal, can directly impact poultry performance, flock uniformity and profitability. I will also be talking to our correspondent Daniel Azevedo, who is based in Brazil, about his latest article on the Soy Moratorium. Dr. Thomas Alfonso, welcome. When we talk about consistency in poultry feed, what does that actually mean in practice, and why does it matter so much to your customers?
Absolutely, and thank you for having me on this interview. Consistency is important because you're counting on essential nutrients to be in the diet to meet the genetic potential of today's modern poultry. So, for example, if you don't have enough lysine or methionine or metabolizable energy, then the animals will not grow to their potential. And if the variability is high, meaning that one day it's high, one day it's low, animals tend to compensate by eating more feed without producing more animal protein. And so they have less feed efficiency when there is poor consistency in the diet.
And how does variability in soybean meal quality affect bird performance differently for broiler producers versus layer operations?
Well, in many ways, it's the same. You know, the essential amino acids to produce animal protein, whether it's meat or eggs, should be consistent. And soybean meal derived from US soy is the highest quality and the highest consistency, which means you can rely on those nutrients. In the case of broilers, what you would tend to see is if there is variability in the nutrient composition, you would see less consistency in the flock, less uniformity. You would see a lower rate of growth and poor feed efficiency. In the case of layers, the layer will try to adjust feed consumption based on nutrient levels in the diet, but not very efficiently. And so what you start to see is the egg size distribution get wider. So again, for animal protein production, you want the animal protein to be on target. You want a nice, consistent, grade A large egg, let's say, as your target value. But if there are birds in the flock that are not getting their nutrient requirements met, you'll get smaller eggs. And you can see that right away in layer operations. I did my dissertation on this exact topic, looking at variability of nutrition and environmental factors in laying hen production. And it only takes a couple of days of a nutrient deficiency or a highly variable diet to demonstrate itself in the form of greater variability of egg size and egg production.
Right. And modern poultry genetics have raised the ceiling on performance potential. How does the quality of your protein source affect whether flocks actually reach that potential?
Very good. So we talk about the digestibility of the essential amino acids and metabolizable energy. And we talk about the consistency of these nutrients as being extremely important. So the variability and the consistency are important factors because in order for the birds to reach their modern genetic potential, they're capable of converting very efficiently the nutrients so long as the nutrients are in there and are not damaged. They could be, in the case of soybean meal, we know, for example, that soy coming from South America requires, in many cases, mechanical drying, and this heat drying can damage. This heat damage can affect the digestibility of those essential nutrients that we're relying on. Digestibility is two factors. It is the animal and it is the diet. And when it comes to those essential amino acids, soybean meal is the most important ingredient in the diet to provide those essential digestible amino acids and metabolizable energy. On the animal side, you need a healthy gut. You need a good digestive system functioning properly. Healthy animals simply digest better. And so these really work in a dynamic way side by side. If an animal has a poorly digestible diet, it can affect their gastrointestinal system. It can make their growth rate less efficient, their feed efficiency poor. And so these go hand in hand. High quality ingredients and high performing animals Both have the potential to bring great value to poultry producers. But when the diet is not consistent in the nutrient composition, then the animals will not reach that genetic potential.
Right. Thank you. And US soy is known for consistent nutrient composition and digestibility. How does that consistency translate into real operational and financial benefits for a poultry producer?
Right. So for the poultry producer, it's really an opportunity to take a look at revenue. Oftentimes in animal production or in commodity businesses such as soybeans, we're only focused on lowering cost and looking at the price of ingredients or the price of all of the inputs. But there are opportunities to increase revenue, and I think this is very important. For profitability, it's revenue minus cost, and revenue should be the bigger number. So that revenue comes from the poultry or the eggs, the meat or the eggs, getting to the processing plant in a timely manner, on schedule, and in the highest category for revenue. In the case of meat, you're looking at a target weight range so that when the when the chicken gets to, let's say, a restaurant or a fast food chain, it's consistent in its size so that it cooks uniformly and the customer gets that value that they expect. Also, these target values have higher revenue. You get more per grade A large egg than the jumbo or the peewees. You get more for the chicken that's at target body weight than if it's too low or if it's too high. Even if it's too high in body weight, you get less per kilogram, yet less per unit in revenue typically when you're selling to institutions, restaurants, et cetera. So the opportunities come, one, in that consistency of the animal protein at the processing plant. The second is a faster rate of growth. Over time, you will get more cycles. So you're able to produce more animal protein, more poultry, with the same amount of feed input in the same in a scheduled period of time. Uniformity and consistency also bring value in terms of feed efficiency. So what this means is you can produce more chicken or more eggs with the same amount of feed, and again, that's revenue. Or you can produce the same amount with less feed and lower cost. So having a high quality ingredient like the soybean meal, which is an essential base ingredient in the diet, means that you have the ability to better manage your operation. You can use less feed or you can produce more animal protein. You can grow at the target weight, at the genetic potential of the animals, and get more cycles over time. And this is all revenue minus cost to take into consideration when making important purchasing decisions, such as the decision to purchase soybean meal made from US soy.
Great, thank you. And finally, what advice would you give to a nutritionist or buyer who is focused primarily on cost per ton when sourcing soybean meal?
Very good. I think in our entire conversation, I never mentioned crude protein. I've mentioned essential amino acids and digestibility and consistency. And I really think it's time for the industry, particularly the purchasing people, to move away from crude protein. We don't actually measure crude protein in our industry. This is 100 years plus of measuring nitrogen and multiplying by 6.25. This is not correct. First of all, the 6.25 coefficient is incorrect. And when we talk about protein, we really should be measuring all of the amino acids. But today's nutritionists know it's those essential limiting amino acids and their digestibility that is most important. So we need to find ways for the buyers of soybean meal to give credit to consistency and digestibility of those essential amino acids and metabolizable energy to truly differentiate one product, one soybean meal product or origin from another.
Thank you so much, Dr. Thomas, for today's conversation and for sharing your valuable insight into why consistency in your protein source directly impacts poultry performance.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. Hello, Daniel. So we'll be discussing your article regarding the soy moratorium today. What is the soy moratorium in short?
Hello, everyone. A pleasure for being here. Well, it's a private agreement that bans the purchase and trade of soy grown on land deforested in the Amazon biome after 22 July 2008. It goes beyond the Brazilian law, the Forest Code, which remains unchanged and is one of the most strictest in the world. Already requires the farmers in the Amazon biome to preserve at least 880 of the property under native vegetation. In practice, the soy moratorium created an additional voluntary time-based cutoff agreed between the farmers and the grain traders.
Okay, and as of the 1st of January, the tax incentives ended in the Mato Grosso state. Why did the government want to stop the tax incentives?
Well, the Mato Grosso state is the largest state on grain production here in Brazil. They did that because the state government agreed the soy moratorium imposed requirements beyond the national legislation, harming the local producers and creating distortions in the market. Ending the incentives removed public support for these companies belonging to the agreement.
Okay, and is that why these big grain companies left the agreement?
Yes, the withdrawal was driven by the end of the tax incentives, but also by pressure from farmers, from producers, who have long criticized the moratorium. Major traders such as Cargill, Bunge, ADM, LDC, and others choose to leave this agreement.
Okay, and what will this mean for the preservation of the Amazon?
Likely higher risk. The moratorium was a key tool in mitigate deforestation. Without it, controls relies solely on Brazilian law, still strict, but environment groups warn an increased a risk of increased deforestation, reputational risks, and weaker market pressure for sustainability here in Brazil.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time, Daniel, and for discussing the soy moratorium with me today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunita. Bye bye.
Bye. So that's a wrap. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of Poultry Talks. Thank you for watching and see you at the next edition. Goodbye.